So today I'm wiring the stuff for the mast. What I've done so far is the mast is wired. Now I've run the wires down, new wires down the compression post from outside. And, well, I'll just show you. And they come out right here. So I need to wire from here underneath all of this, underneath the battery box, then out here and up and back into there where the bus panel is. And the bus panel is already wired to the switch box for each of those things. So let's go out and I'll show you the mast area. That's right here. The new wires come out of the compression post, and I could not fit the new big wire for the antenna for the VHF or for the radar down the compression post. So they go back here, and then they go up and into this box that holds that keeps water from coming in through the companionway cover. And some people are not going to like this, but that's okay. They come down right here at the cockpit and in through a through hole there that I've blocked for water. And then you can't really see them on the inside, but they go on back to the nav station where they hook up with the switches for the radar, and of course to the splitter for the AIS and the VHF. The other thing I did yesterday that I didn't record is I got my depth sounder working. I wired it up, and the old autopilot that the last owner had this on the boat, but it was all torn apart into pieces and was not wired up. And I'm pretty sure that was because he couldn't get it to work. Something failed. Because as soon as I plugged it in, it used to have a plug down in the aft cabin. And as soon as I plugged in the auto helm, it beeped once and then would turn off. And I couldn't get it to stay on. So I tried rewiring the plug itself, and that didn't work. And then I just hardwired it to test it, and it worked fine. So the whole time it was the plug. It wasn't anything wrong with the autopilot. It was the plug. And I didn't like the idea of, if it's bad weather and I have to be in here and I need the autopilot on and I don't want to be out in the cockpit, I didn't like the idea of this aft companionway having to be open in order to have the autopilot working, because before the wires came out of here and then went down here. And so what I did is I went ahead and put a wire through hole right there, and it's hardwired out here now, which means it has to stay out here, which has its advantages and disadvantages. The big advantage is I don't have to, when I use it, I don't have to have this open anymore. And so to make that work, I just plug in the connector to the tiller pilot that goes right up there. It connects right there to the tiller, and I can also hook up a remote with a cable to that goes all the way down below, either aft or forward. So that's kind of cool, and that works as well. Everything works. I hooked it all up yesterday and it works great. So that means I don't have to buy a new one as far as the automatic autopilot. And by the way, just a side note, this is an AutoHelm 2000. That's what they later became Ray Marine. But on Wandering Dolphin, for all the years that we used Wandering Dolphin, we had an AutoHelm, I think it was an AutoHelm 6000. It wasn't a tiller pilot, it was the regular hardwired autopilot. And it was old like that, and it worked like a charm forever. It never had any issues. So I'm very happy to have the old AutoHelm on MiG. It does not, I have no desire to change that out. The only thing we ever had happen with that old AutoHelm was the control module, this, went out. And I got on eBay and I found another one and bought it. So Wandering Dolphin now has 2. So I'm going to go on eBay, start going on eBay, looking for a replacement for this, and I'm going to go ahead and purchase it as soon as one comes up, so that I've got a spare in here, because that sure is a lot cheaper than buying a whole new tiller pilot. So even though I like Norman's tiller pilot that hooks up to his Pelagiac tiller pilot that hooks up to his monitor wind vane, and someday I'm sure I'll end up with that, but for now this makes me happy. Between the monitor wind vane and this, I should be fine. So that's where I'm at today. I'm going to go down, I'm going to cut some wire I'm going to cut the pieces of wire that I need to wire up that that mast, and I'll film that when I get the wire cut. Okay, so before I start this, I'm going to I didn't cut all of the wires that I needed, because I want to make sure that this one is correct before I do that. But I didn't measure it, so I need to measure the length of that, so that if this one works, I can just cut some the same length for the rest of the things that go in here. So I'm going to test this one before I cut all the different pieces of wire. I've done that before, and then all of them are just a little bit too short, and that really is a bummer. You don't want to splice it if you don't have to, and in those cases I just ended up rerouting it so that I had a little extra. But I also don't want extra, because it costs quite a bit of money for this marine wire. So alright, so I'm going to measure that.
So a little time lapse here. You don't have to watch me fishing these wires through. So what I did here is I taped the wire to one end of a long stick, and then I fed the stick through. Actually, I fed the stick through first, and then I put tape through it, and I ran it into the bilge area so that I could grab the other end, and then I pulled the rest of it back through, and it worked pretty slick. So, by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before I head offshore for Hawaii. I'd like to get monetized before then, and so it says that most of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you don't mind subscribing, that would really be great. So here I am. I'm getting ready to go back into the aft cabin now and hook up these wires to the bus bars. They're back in the aft cabin. You have to go into the footwell area of one of the little cabins, and this is all my bus bars. I put brand new bus bars in there, and they are all labeled. You just can't see them because it's pointing straight down, but they actually are very organized and labeled really well. And there are different bus bars for each system, which really helped me organize things. But it kind of messed things up for me here, because I called the steaming lights were actually the running lights for that bus bar, and I messed it all up.
All right, there we go. So I've got all the wires run from here back, and I will be putting some chafing guard around those as well, where they go around the corners and stuff. And then they go underneath the floor here and back, and there they all are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, one at a time, hook them up to their actual lights and make sure they work. So the first thing I have to do is put fuses in the particular spots here. So I need it in the running lights, tricolor light, and anchor light. That's these three. Those are the three that are left. Sorry, I wasn't even looking at it. So I need to put them in these three. The running lights, tricolor, and anchor light right there. And then I need one for the steaming light as well. And then we should be good to go. So I have wired these up with the one that says spreader, and we'll see if I got that right. Hopefully I did. By the way, I do not recommend that you use these things as permanent, but obviously the spreader lights are not going to go down here. I'm going to hook them up to their particular wires here that go up the mast. So, and I'll do those properly with shrink fit and whatnot. But let's turn on the light. I put a fuse in it, and I'm gonna hit the spreader light button. And look at that, bling! We got spreader lights. Right on. Now I'm gonna wire that up to the correct wires down there. So I will not film that, but I'll film it afterwards, and we'll go to the next one and we will test all of these. Man, those are bright. Okay, so now I need to put this in here. And if you're wondering why I use these, it's because my little box here did not have enough room for a proper fuse box. I bought a fuse box, but it wouldn't fit in here. I would have had to put it like somewhere else. So I did these inline fuses. Okay, so let's see if I hooked up the correct one. All right, so I'm trying the tricolor anchor light, and I didn't know which one was blue or red was for anchor. So we're gonna flip this on now and see which one comes on. Ah, it's tricolor. Okay, so I know that the anchor is the blue light. So there's my tricolor. Red, green, white. So red is for tricolor. Need to write that down. Okay, let's try this again. I rewired it with anchor one. And there we go. Anchor light is working. Right on. Okay, so I know now that I've got anchor light wired properly. I'm gonna try tricolor now. We know that the light works, but now I want to make sure that I wired it properly. Flip it on, and it's working. So we've got tricolor is correct. Yay. Okay, so I discovered why I called that next one steaming, because the way I used to have it up here, I originally was planning on not doing just running lights where the red, green, and white stern lights all are able to be run by themselves without the steaming light. And I was going to call all of those lights steaming lights and have the masthead light or steaming light itself actually just hooked into those, so every time you turned on steaming lights, it would turn all of those on. And then for sailing, I was only going to use the tricolor light. But I decided I like the ability to turn off the steaming light by itself. In case the tricolor ever went out or something, then I would have the option of using running lights for sailing as well. So I changed this one from steaming lights to running lights, and I moved the steaming light down to here. And the steaming light actually was just a spare before, so it isn't even run from up here down to the panel yet. And the label down there still says steaming lights for the running lights. So I need to switch that out, switch the label out as well. But now this should work for running lights. I only hooked up the green, but it tells me if I'm right for running lights. And I'm not. It did not come on. Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna troubleshoot this. All right, so I figured it out. So because I had wired running lights were gonna be called steaming lights, and they were all gonna be together, no separate switch for the steaming light, I had ran all the wires properly to all the spots, but there needed to be a starboard, port, and stern light as well. So they're all separate, but they needed to all be wired into the same one. So I put a separate bus bar down there for those. See, it's been months since I did this. So that's why I had hooked them up where the steaming light is gonna go, right? So the running lights are all those steaming lights now. Anyway, it should work now properly. So let's give it a try here. Turning on running lights. Now it should work. Unless it trips out, because, yep, there it is. Working perfectly. Yeah, so I was afraid that the ones that are wired in but not hooked up might cross black and red and positive, negative, and trip it out, but they are not. So this is proper now. The other ones that are wired should also work, which I will find that out very soon because I'm going to actually test all that. But this is for the steaming light, not the running lights. I don't know what I'm doing. My brain is fogged. I don't have any running lights going up to the mast. I only have the steaming light going up to the mast. So this is still wrong. God. This is such a pain. See, if I'd have wired all this up at the same time, it would have been in my brain. But since I did it months ago, now I'm having to... A good thing I labeled stuff, because I knew that I would forget what was what, and then I'd be back where I started with the other guy's mess. So at least I labeled everything, and now it's not labeled right, but... So the wind is where I need to hook that one, which is down here, and then it should work. Okay, so you know what part of the problem here is? Because I'm doing keto and I'm intermittent fasting, and then I do, once a week, I do a 2-day fast right now just until I lose my weight. And actually, I'm on my 3rd day with not eating. It definitely affects your brain a little bit. So I'm on my 3rd day fast. So I don't even know why I was hooking running lights up to the mast. Got the tricolor on the mast. Anyway, it's the masthead light, which I've now hooked the correct light up. That's the masthead light, or steaming light. And down here, where it said wind before, that's now steaming light. So I just need to put the proper fuse in there for steaming light, which is a number 2 spot, which is this one, right? No, that's this one, yes. Right here. So let's pull that open, and we will put a fuse in there. It doesn't really need a 10 amp fuse. I'll switch it to a 5 amp. I need both hands for that. Sorry. You will have to just lay down and look at the ceiling. Sorry guys. Sorry to have you looking at the ceiling. Okay. There we go. Now, moment of truth. And it works! Steaming light! My gosh. Okay, I need to go relabel those things before I forget everything. But for now, I've got all those correct now. So I've got running lights work, tricolor light works, anchor light works, spreader lights work, and